Well, the most important really is to try and redress the situation of Australian Aboriginals. The government wouldn't deny that as an objective, as a priority. If I've got a difference with the government, it would probably be, well, it would be, the policy is too much determined by Canberra, and consultation, learning to treat people with respect, is not being adequately evidenced in the way policies are carried out or implemented. Beyond that, for Australia, within our own boundaries, having a good hard look at anti-terrorism laws, policing powers, to see where those laws are excessive, and then have the courage to do something about it. A challenge that's existed for quite some time and which we've not responded to. People often talk about Australian identity, and I sometimes think that the talk they use or the words they use really are a nonsense. People sometimes talk about Australian values as though they're unique. Well, there are some things about Australia, obviously, that are particular to this country. But the values that are important to any society, if it wants peace, security, stability, a better future for kids, a decent education, jobs for people, the values that are important to those objectives are really universal. They're not particular to Australia or America. In their own way, differently applied, they're also relevant to the peace, security, and stability of an African village. Where I would like to see us assert ourselves more is in the development of a foreign policy that reflects not only what we are, but reflects our place, if not in Asia, on the edge of Asia. The recent Defence White Paper, I think is a regressive document that goes back many decades. It talks about needing the protection of the extended deterrent, which is nuclear weapons. The Americans have never said they'd use nuclear weapons in our defense. Americans, if we ever get into trouble, we'll get in, the Americans will help us if it's in their interests at the time. Not if we earn brownie points, not if we go to war in Iraq or Afghanistan with them, if it's in their interests at the time. If it's not, they'll forget all those other things. And I've got direct evidence of that in way relations work out with America. I still think the American alliance is important, but I also think it's important for Australia to assert its own view. And peace and stability for Australia will be going to be best enhanced if there's peace, stability, and trust between all the countries of East and Southeast Asia. Now, some of the problems can be identified, and for some of the problems, American involvement is surely going to be needed. North Korea and nuclear weapons is a very evident one. But there are some offshore islands in which the Philippines, China and Malaysia, I think, all lay a claim. How can you make sure that that does not disturb the peace and stability of the world? Well, if others have an influence in that, we might even have a greater influence than the United States. It's a question of making sure that diplomacy will be used in any resolution. And I think all three countries involved in that would probably agree with that. So can you formulate a guarantee that that's going to continue for the future? But if there's peace, stability between, and trust between countries of our own region, that's what will secure Australia's future for all time, not the continued presence necessarily of the United States. In some things, their continued presence is likely to happen because they're a superpower. But the Defence White Paper talks as though their involvement is a necessary prerequisite for peace and stability. And that, I think, is a nonsense. There are some things where people would look adversely on what the United States has done, and where they might regard American actions as an irritant. not as a contributor to peace. We need to be able to make our own view and own judgments, and I don't think we do.